Okay, in this video, I'm going to talk about the mistakes I made or the changes that I had to make in order to get sober and stay sober. So the first mistake I made was I kept contacts in my phone and I kept meeting up with friends that I used to drink with. So I would go out with friends, while I was trying to maintain my recovery, I would go out with my friends who were all drinking, right? And I wouldn't, and I'd stay around them, and they'd be drunk, and they'd be having a good time, and I'd be, trying to do the same, playing pool, whatever. And, the first few times I'd do fine, I'd do all right, I'd enjoy myself. Maybe I'd get a little frustrated, see somebody, laugh a little loud, or be like, man, I wish I felt like that, or that must be nice. Or somebody would order like a Heineken, and it just looked really good that day. So that was the biggest thing, is that I kept my contacts and I used to go out with these people all the time. And that had to change because, that's just the recipe for disaster. Continuously going out with people that constantly drink and you're constantly trying not to while you want to. That's just insanity. That's not a good move in any book. No matter how you cut that pie, it's not in your best interest. And that's a lot different from like ending up at a bar one time randomly because of like an event or like dinner or whatever. But like, going out after work with my coworkers in a restaurant constantly while they're drinking and I'm trying to stay sober is just not, it's not what you do when you're trying to stay sober. That makes no sense. And that goes right into the next one, right? Which is working in restaurants as a whole. Not only was I around it constantly, I was around people who it was really normal to like get high throughout the week, on the job, right after the job, right before the job. Basically anything kind of goes. As long as you can do your job, nobody really bats an eye. And that was a huge problem because I was one of those people. Like I'd been working in restaurants at this point for almost 7 years, like 6 and change years. And I was constantly drinking. Like I was drinking mid shift, before shift, after shift, and getting high sometimes too, at work, after work for sure. And trying to go and be in that same environment sober is one thing. Like that can be done. I mean, for some people, it can really be done. Is it more difficult? Absolutely. And it's going to be tough to be making friends or socializing with your coworkers a little bit. I feel like, at least in the restaurants that I've worked at, in my personal experience. And it's been more than a handful. But the main issue for me was that it was like me being inebriated and doing my job were so intertwined. It was such a it's so intertwined. Like it was in sync. Like I not only did I not feel like I wasn't doing my job, or not only did I not feel like I was doing the best that I could, or whatever. It was like this vibe that I so loved, right? About being in a kitchen, right, and being in a bar, like in that industry, was missing. Like the whole thing that drew me in to this industry that I didn't want to let go of for such a long time was now gone. So yeah, I mean, it was just it was a huge problem because everybody around me was drinking, and it was very normalized. And it would start to give me ideas of like, oh, you can hold a job and drink and this and that, and you've done it before, and just anything to convince myself that I could do it again, and that I was no longer, like, I was cured. I was no longer a problem. So that was a large change that needed to happen. So that goes into resentments and reservations, right? So I had to stop resenting the fact that other people could drink without major life consequences, because I was not one of those people. Like I had to accept that I had a problem. That was like a big one. But I was always the type of person, like I wouldn't really deny that I had a problem. Like I always knew I kind of had a problem, and I was kind of okay with having that problem in the most messed up of ways. But I just when it got so advanced, I resented the fact that other people's lives wouldn't be in shambles while mine was, because of my own choices. Messed up thinking, right? Like, just even saying it out loud now, reflecting back on it, it's just that the whole concept is insane. And those resentments always came with reservations, right? They always thought that, like, if I could just mimic dude, right? If I could just mimic head chef and only drink what he drank, and only go out when he goes out, that I wouldn't have the same problem. And that sounds good when I'm sober. Like, that sounds like a valid argument and a great plan, if anything. The issue is, Abdullah when he's sober versus when Abdullah gets drunk are two different people. And every time Abdullah gets drunk, his mind changes. He has an epiphany, and his entire outlook on life changes. And now a 6-pack a day is no longer a good idea. It's a prescription. It's mandatory. It's maintenance, right? And that would just continue to escalate and escalate and escalate until there was not only nothing left, there was nowhere to go, nothing to do but drink. And, I'd end up right back at square one, right? Back in an institution, right? Or nowhere to go, looking for somewhere to sleep, somewhere to lay my head, and, bottom shelf vodka. Like, it's a mess, right? So I had to let go of that fact, right? And I had to, and with letting go of those reservations, it was letting go of the idea that, like, okay, if I just had enough money to where, and I just lived well below my means, this would be a very, sustainable lifestyle. And sure, on paper, to an extent, that could be like about, the thing is like my health. Like, this whole, me planning this whole lifestyle out does not factor in my health whatsoever, which is honestly the most important thing, right? Is like, don't die, right? Don't kill yourself. Not needed, completely unnecessary. Don't do that. No need to do that to yourself. Yeah, and how I started to let go of all that was simply imagining the life I had before I was drinking, literally as a child, right? Like, just imagining what I used to do as a young kid, like before I was even a teenager, and what I would do. I would be involved in like community outreach programs. I would my mom used to always put me in like different like summer camps, right? I'd be in a mosque, right, doing weekend pickup basketball. So I was doing stuff that I still considered fun without drinking and using drugs, and reminiscing on those times brought me back to the reality of like, that's the way most people live, right? So yeah, that kind of transitions into the next point, which is I just automatically assumed that because I was like grew up in a mosque and had a religious background, that steps 1, 2, and 3 were like free parking on a Monopoly board. They were just like handouts, give me's, and yeah, that's definitely not the case. Having knowledge of a higher power and being able to like explain, a religious text is not exactly what this program, what 12-step program needs, right? So basically it was like I knew a lot, right? Because I was taught well as a kid and understood a lot, but I sensed nothing. Like, I was completely numb, right? I would know all these things. I know what I was doing was wrong, but I wouldn't feel anything other than guilt and shame, that I would just, and my only response to that guilt and shame was drown it out even more, right? So I never felt that presence of a higher power like I needed to in order to start doing right by myself. So yeah, it's a process, and it's something that I'm still doing and still trying to develop my understanding with. And but it's crucial. It was honestly one of the largest pieces that was completely missing from my previous attempts at sobriety. And with me trying to get sober, right, the biggest thing was accepting that alcohol was not the problem. Alcohol was not the problem. Matter of fact, it was the solution, right? It was a crap solution, but it was the solution to my problems, right? That's why I kept going back, right? And that's as simple as the fact is accepting that I am the problem. My thinking is a problem. I am the way I handle my thoughts and my emotions is a problem. And alcohol is not a problem. Those are the major things that I needed to change in order to be successful in my sobriety. And I hope this helps somebody, even just a little bit in understanding what it takes to get and stay sober. All right. Till next time.